Thank you, Mr. President. I want to speak for a moment about clean air. Over the last several years, first as governor of Tennessee, later as United States Senator, I have learned that healthier air also means better jobs for Tennesseans. That's why I intend to vote to uphold a clean air rule that requires utilities in other states to install the same pollution control equipment that the Tennessee Valley Authority is already installing on coal-fired power plants in the TVA region. TVA alone, Mr. President, can't clean up our air. Tennessee is bordered by more states than any other state. We are literally surrounded by our neighbors' smokestacks. If we in Tennessee want more Nissan plants and more Volkswagen plants, we'll have to stop dirty air from blowing into Tennessee, and here's why. Back in 1980, I was governor then, Nissan came to Tennessee. The first thing the Nissan executives did was to go down to the State Air Quality Board and apply for an air quality permit for their paint emissions plant. If the air in the Nashville area had been so dirty that Nissan couldn't have gotten an air quality permit for additional emissions, Nissan would have gone to Georgia, and we would not be able to say today that 1/3 of our manufacturing jobs in Tennessee are auto jobs. Every one of Tennessee's major metropolitan areas is struggling today to meet the standards that govern whether industries can acquire the air quality permits that they need to locate in our state. I once asked the Sevierville Chamber of Commerce leaders to name their top priority. They said to me, clean air. Now, Sevierville is not necessarily a hotbed of left-wing radicals. Sevier County is the most Republican county in the state. It's nestled right up against the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. It's where Dolly Parton was born. I live in the next county, right up next to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. East Tennesseans know that 9 million visitors come each year to see the Great Smoky Mountains, not to see the Great Smoggy Mountains. And we want those tourist dollars and the jobs they bring to keep coming. Despite a lot of progress, the Great Smokies still is one of the most polluted national parks in America. Standing on Clingman's Dome, our highest peak, it's about 6,652 feet, you should be able to see about 100 miles through the natural blue haze about which the Cherokees used to sing. Yet today, on a smoggy day, you can see only 24 miles. Mr. President, there are 546 Tennesseans who work today in coal mining in our state. That's according to the Energy Information Administration. Every single one of those jobs is important. This has been an important tradition in a few counties in East Tennessee. But at the same time, there are 1,200 Tennesseans who work at the Alstom plants in Knoxville and Chattanooga that will supply the country with most of the pollution control equipment required by this rule. Every one of those Tennesseans' jobs is important too. Of the 5 worst cities for asthma in the United States, according to the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, 3 of those are in Tennessee. They're Memphis, Chattanooga, and Knoxville. And only last year, Nashville dropped out of the top 10 worst U.S. cities for asthma. Because of high levels of mercury, health advisories warn against eating fish caught in many of Tennessee's streams. Nationally, mercury causes brain damage in more than 315,000 children each year, according to the Mount Sinai School of Medicine. It also contributes to mental retardation. Half of the United States man-made mercury comes from coal-fired power plants. This new rule requires removing 90% of this mercury. The rule also controls 186 other hazardous pollutants, including arsenic, acid gases, and toxic materials, toxic metals. Utilities have known that this was coming since 1990 because these pollutants, these 187 pollutants, including mercury, are specifically identified in the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act as amendments that need to be controlled by utilities. And now the federal courts have added their weight and ordered the Environmental Protection Administration to control these pollutants. An added benefit of the rule is that the equipment installed to control these hazardous pollutants will also capture fine particles, a major source of respiratory diseases that is primarily regulated under another part of the Clean Air Act. This new equipment will add a few dollars a month to residential electric bills. The EPA estimates a 3% increase nationwide. But Mr. President, because the Tennessee Valley Authority has already committed to install these pollution controls, the customers of TVA will pay this rate increase anyway, with the rule or without the rule. To reduce the costs, the senator from Arkansas, Senator Pryor, and I will introduce legislation to allow utilities 6 years to comply with the rules, which is a timeline that many utilities have requested. Now, earlier today, the senator from Oklahoma, who's sponsoring a resolution to overturn the rule, referred to the legislation which Senator Pryor and I offer as a cover amendment and suggested in some way that it wasn't a sincere effort. Mr. President, I greatly respect the senator from Oklahoma. Sometimes we have different points of view, but I have different points of view with the senator from Minnesota, the senator from Arkansas, the senator from almost every place in the country. But I respect those different points of view, just as I respect Senator Inhofe's different point of view. But I hope he will respect mine, and here's mine. Ever since I've been in the United States Senate, I've introduced legislation to clean up the air in Tennessee. Why have I done that? Because we don't want the great smoggy mountains. We want the great Smoky Mountains. We don't want to perpetually have 3 of the top 5 asthma cities in the country. We don't like health advisory warnings in our streams, so we can't eat our fish. And especially, Mr. President, we don't want in Memphis, for example, for the Memphis Chamber of Commerce to recruit another auto plant to the big Memphis mega site and be told that they can't come there because the Memphis area doesn't qualify for a clean air permit because of its dirty air, especially if that dirty air is blowing in from another state. So what this rule is about is requiring our neighbors and the rest of the country to do the same thing we're already doing. And if they don't do it, we have no chance in the world ever to have clean air in Tennessee. And if we don't, we'll have worse health and we'll have fewer jobs. Now, as far as the 6 years goes, the law gives states the right to add a 4th year to the 3 years utilities have to comply with the law. The federal law today gives the President of the United States the right to add 2 more years to that. That's 6. So in the law today, the President and the states could make sure that utilities have 6 years to comply with this rule. I believe that makes sense. If I were the king and could wave a magic wand, that's what I would do. And why would I do that? Because we're getting the environmental benefit over the 6 years. So what will happen is utilities will assess their coal plants. They will decide which ones are too old or too expensive to operate. They will decide within 3 years to close those that they're not going to continue to operate. And then they'll have 6 years to spread the cost of implementing the expensive pollution control equipment, most of it's called SCRs and scrubbers, on their coal-fired power plants. Most of the utilities have suggested this 6-year timeline as the single best way to clean the air and to do it in a way that has the least effect on electric bills. So we'll introduce our legislation to give a utility executive 6 years to implement the rule, but we'll also write President Obama a letter and urge him to grant the 6 years so utility executives can have that certainty. Mr. President, some are saying that this rule is anti-coal. I say that it is pro-coal in this sense because it guarantees coal a future in our clean energy mix. The Tennessee Valley Authority, as I have said, has decided to put on all of the coal plants it continues to operate the pollution control equipment it needs to make coal clean. That doesn't count carbon, that accounts all the hazardous pollutants, it counts sulfur, nitrogen, mercury, arsenic, those things. That means that long-term, the TVA will be producing more than a third of its electricity from clean coal. That guarantees its future for the foreseeable future in our region. And this is the largest public utility in the world. The rest of our electricity in the Tennessee Valley will come from even cleaner natural gas and from pollution-free nuclear power and hydropower. Mr. President, ever since Tennesseans elected me to the United States Senate, which was about 10 years ago, I have worked hard to clean up our air. Tennesseans know that. Most of them agree with me. They thank me for it when I go home on weekends. They do that because they know that if I do not help clean up our air in Tennessee, if I don't stop dirty air from blowing in to our state from other states who don't have pollution controls on their coal plants, that it jeopardizes our health and it jeopardizes our opportunity to continue to be one of the nation's leading states in attracting auto jobs and in attracting tourism. Mr. President, I notice on the Senate floor the senator from Arkansas, Senator Pryor, and I thank him for his leadership on the issue, and I thank him for his practical attitude. We have the same goals, I believe, which are clean the air, number one, but keep the electric bills down at the lowest possible cost. And we believe we have the most constructive proposal to do that. We hope President Obama will agree with us. We hope first the Senate will agree with us and uphold the rule. That second, the President will agree with us and grant 6 years. And third, if he does not, that the Congress will agree with us and pass a law giving utilities 6 years to spread out the cost. I thank the President and I yield.